Welcome back. Welcome to another edition of Nain Shorts, where we tackle the big questions. Okay, no, we don't. But we just talk about training and the ideas that pop into this crazy dome that I call my head. Uh, because training is ongoing, it doesn't just happen on the mat, it happens out in real life, in the real world. And if you can combine the two, then you're always training, right? Or at least that's the idea behind it. And oftentimes, when we're not on the mat, when we can't move or have a partner or train, where we're just driving or have 5 minutes in between our day-to-day, we think about stuff. Or at least I hope you do, because ultimately that's where all this stuff happens. All these ideas pop up is when we spend the time thinking about what we learned and why we're learning it to begin with. The whys are always very important, as we've talked about on this show several times. And today we were thinking about the ideas of offense and defense. Now take a moment and just consider those two words, offense, defense. What are all the ideas that come up in reference to that? And there are so many examples in so many facets of life and things that we watch in entertainment as well as martial arts, where we can sort of define what those words mean and how they are interpreted in the real world. But have we ever questioned whether or not something is offensive or defensive? Now, me personally, I'm offensive all the time. I piss people off without even trying. So when I really get to it, I'm even better at it. But can I defend my ideas? Can I defend myself physically? And what is defense then really? Is it just protecting yourself? If that's the case, well then shouldn't we just learn how to constantly block ourselves and minimize damage? Like, is that enough to say you defended yourself? And I guess many of you would say no, because then you're just taking a bunch of hits. You're not doing anything proactively to stop the person from harming you. So if that's the case, then doesn't it mean that we can't just be defensive? We have to do something to get that other person to stop, which by that idea alone, aren't we then supposed to be offensive, right? And I know everyone's going to have their own opinion on this matter, and it's not a right or wrong thing, and it's not a matter of whether or not this makes sense to one person and not to the other, but that's all martial arts. Not everybody does the same martial arts because of whatever reason, because they fell into something, because this worked better for them than something else. And that's the point, is that everyone's going to have their own interpretation of the idea. This conversation is simply asking, have we thought about whether or not the things that we do would be categorized as defensive or offensive? For example, this swing, right? Very generic number one strike, right? And that's the thing, we call it a strike. So by that alone being a strike, you would say it's an offensive thing. But what if I don't hit my target? Is it still offensive? Is it still something that I'm proactively doing to harm somebody else? Or am I just trying to get the stick that somebody's swinging at me from hitting me? And if this one strike is now being used to deflect a stick, is it now defensive? Did I just keep myself from getting harmed, but I didn't inflict any damage, so I haven't really been offensive yet, I'm just blocking, right? You're deflecting things, so now I'm defensive. But again, if somebody's truly trying to harm me, and we're not just playing, we're not just training and thinking of ideas, well then would that be enough to keep myself safe? Would that be enough to keep myself from getting harmed? Or would I then have to harm that person, hit them just enough, harm them just enough to keep them from still trying to attack me? So at one point, we have to do both, don't we? We have to minimize the amount of damage that we receive and maximize the amount of damage that we cause. So is there really a separation, or are we constantly being defensive and offense at the same time? Now I'm talking specifically in the realm of martial arts. And I don't know, there might be a martial art out there where there is no punches, where there is no kicks, where there is nothing that we would traditionally call as offensive moves, things that are designed to cause damage. Even in Kaju, we learn our blocks. You know, upward block, inward, outer, and at the beginning, we're just learning the movements. We're learning how to create these strong structures. So when somebody is attacking us, we can just protect ourselves from getting harmed, even protecting our head, minimizing the amount of damage. But is that solely a defensive thing? And over time, as we train, we realize that no, these can also become strikes. A punch is coming, and I hit it. My block is now a strike. So did I turn something that was defensive into offensive, or was it always both? Was it always there? We just, over time, realize what more we can do with it. How do we turn the things that we know to be facts into more than just the facts that were given to us at that time? And that's what this conversation is about. How do we think beyond that initial moment, that initial lesson that we received? All of a sudden, this upward block, sure, if you do it well enough, if you time it, if you have it in a good structure, guess what? Somebody's swinging really hard at you, they're going to get hurt. I know because I've done it. I've ukied for a lot of people, and if you swing hard enough and somebody has a good structure, a good block, that freaking hurts. Did that person defend themselves? Yes, but were they also actively harming the person attacking them? Also yes. So in that case, they're both offensive and defensive. And you have all these other ideas of how to slip a punch, how to open up the door, entries, and all these other things that we talk about. 1, 2, 3, and then you hit. 1, 2, 3, and then you hit. Or 1 and hit. 2, hit. All these things, all these concepts that we've trained in, these techniques, both have an offensive and defensive element to it, depending on whether or not you do it at the right time, or if it even connects, because you could miss. The other person could be that good, and their defense is backing away, moving to the side, getting out of line for your next target, if in fact you are actively trying to hurt them, or you're just trying to minimize your damage and get away from the situation. So is it really a definitive thing to say, oh, this is offensive, this is defensive? Or is it just in the moment, how things are? And if we don't think about this, do we then open ourselves up to a situation where we should have done this, but we didn't because we thought we were being just defensive, or we thought it would be too aggressive or too offensive to do this other thing, and all of a sudden we're getting harmed? And by then it's too late to think about because you're in that moment. So how do we then consider all these ideas? Well, just look at your art. Look at the things that you do. What is the purpose of that move? Is it just for the art? Is it meant to do something to the other opponent? Is it just to deflect, to move away? And depending on what you do, soft style, hard style, those could mean very different things. But can they mean the other? Can you modify what you do just by changing the way you think about it so it becomes more? This upward block that I used earlier, that if done well will harm the other person, can that become something else? And yeah, it can. Because not only have we used it to stop a punch, but in Kaju we also use it to deflect, to redirect, where the impact is very minimal, because you're moving it somewhere else so you can then throw the person down. I defended myself so I can harm that person with the ground by just slamming him down. That's one of our punch arts. Actually, that's a few of our punch arts now that I think about it. And they become both things. Now, is this a conversation worth having? Maybe, maybe not. It may be useful to you, it may not. It's your choice. I'm not saying one is right or one is wrong. It's just the thoughts that I have. Where else can I take these ideas? Where else can I define them based on my needs and my understanding of things? Because ultimately that's what's going to give you that edge, because you have to move how you move, and you have to think about things how you think about them. And if we keep ourselves rigid to, oh no, this is the way that it was, this is the way that it was taught, and it's never going to be anything else, well then Okay, more power to you. You can make it work that way. By all means, keep doing that. But if there are places in your art, places in your training where you feel like, this isn't quite right, oh, I don't know why we do this, my teachers taught me it, but I'm not 100% sure how to use it or whether or not it's even useful in a real life situation, well, then break it apart. Think of it differently. Where else or how else can you use it? Because if we don't explore, we don't grow, we don't push the boundaries of what even we understand or we think to be true, well, then are we really advancing the art, or are we just stagnant and doing the same thing over and over again? I've seen these blocks. I learned these ideas where it's okay, you're keeping yourself from harm, sure, but depending on how you use it and how you think about it, this roof block can be very devastating to the person that's attacking you. Sure, if you don't have time and you just bring it up because, oh shit, somebody's swinging at you and it's stick to stick, defense. You just kept yourself from doing it. But what do you do afterwards? Do you just keep trying to block left and right, hoping you don't get hit? Eventually you will if somebody's really swinging at you. And even when you're training, yeah, if you're not doing it well enough or in the right place, you will get hit. It happens all the time. Anyone who practices with sticks knows you get hit a lot. And that's also sort of training. Your body toughens up a little bit, so it doesn't hurt as much. And in a real life situation, your adrenaline, you're probably going to hurt even less because you're going to be too focused on just getting through that fight. So how then does this become offensive? Well, you step in. Instead of blocking the stick, you block the hand, the arm. You use the puño and you ram it into somebody's face. You're still doing the same move. It's still a roof block, but the way that you think about it changes the way that you use it. All of a sudden, this seemingly defensive idea at face value is now so much more. It's an entry point. I'm just doing this to protect my head while I rush in and hit the guy in the face with my puño. And then from there, all hell breaks loose, and whatever other training you have will come out, and there, that's your fight. Now, is that something that you can really train? Sure it is, because it's just an idea. Something that you can think about as you have the time to do so outside of it. And when that idea pops into your head, hey, try it out. Practice it with somebody. See how you can make it work, because ultimately you do have to test it out to see whether or not it's even a good idea. And as long as we keep doing that, aren't we essentially pushing the boundaries of what we understand and what we know to be true, and possibly creating something different? Not for the masses, not for everyone else, but for ourselves. And we think back to all the pioneers and all the people that created the arts that we now hold dear and love and want to cherish and carry on forward to the next generation. How did they do it? Was it just set in stone? Did they just find a tablet that said, do it this way, and that's how everyone's been doing it? No. They developed ideas. They developed concepts. They questioned what was, because they were different. Because they were taller, they were shorter, they were smaller, they were bigger. So they had to adapt. And with that came ideas. So can we proactively start doing these things before the necessity arises? Can we start digging our well before we get thirsty? Just thinking about what we know to be true and wondering, is it true all the time? Can I change the way that I think about this and make it something else? Not necessarily new, not necessarily better. There are so many arts out there. Somebody's done it. Somebody's doing it now. After this conversation, now I'm wondering, all the other blocks that I do in my kaju, from just protecting my head, protecting my rib, how do I turn those to become more offensive? Great words that we can use to share ideas and train and differentiate between curriculums, definitely. But ultimately, are they really that separate, or they're just dependent on the situation and how we think about it? Just a thought. No right or wrong, no anything else other than, if you think about it, what do you come up with? How are your ideas? How were these concepts defined to you? And do you still use them that way, or has something changed because of your experiences, because of the things that you've now learned beyond your original art or your structure, the thing you hold most dear? People who carry guns, you carry it for defense, or at least I hope so, unless you're hunting, or you like shooting people. I don't know. I don't know your life, and I'm not going to question it. But those who do carry guns for defense, at what point does that become offensive? At what point are you the aggressor? At what point does that stop being self-defense and it's just you shooting somebody? Like, just ideas, because that's where the scope of things go. If we're talking about self-defense and we're taking that word defense and offense and we're defining them strictly to specific, I guess, concepts or ideas, then is that all there is? Is there more? Or legally, can we question whether or not that was even valid? I mean, so many things to consider when those two simple words, and again, words that we use often, words that we know and understand, but do we really? And have we taken the time to take the simplest things and really try to define them for ourselves more than anything? Because ultimately, you're going to be in the fight. You're the one that's going to have to use whatever you learn, and hopefully it works. If it doesn't, back to the drawing board if you're still alive to do so, because you never know. And that's why we train, right? That's why we keep on training, why we keep on doing this. So thank you very much for joining me today on Nain's Shorts. Until the next one, 3, 2, 1.